Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz says Iran's nuclear facilities are vulnerable and would be an easy target for Israeli jets. This after Iran urged US President-elect Donald Trump to use his influence with Israel and de-escalate tensions. Taiwan requests the United States for the purchase of the Patriot air defense systems and F-35 stealth fighter jets. Taiwan says it is reaching out to the incoming Trump administration to approve the deals amid growing Chinese aggression. And clashes erupt between members of the ruling party and the opposition party in Senegal ahead of Sunday's parliamentary elections. Senegal's Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko says that his party will retaliate against the opposition. Nigeria signs a $1.2 billion contract with China to revamp production of aluminium in the West African country. The money would be used to restart a plant that would allow Nigeria to produce 1 million tons of aluminium every year. And South Sudan launches a nationwide polio vaccination campaign to vaccinate over 3 million children aged up to the age of 5. This after the country recorded 12 cases after being declared polio-free in 2020. Hello and welcome. Let us begin in southern Africa, where protests are heating up in Mozambique over election results. Mozambique's opposition leader, Venancio Mondlane, has called for crippling protests this week over the contested 9th of October elections that were won by the ruling Frelimo party. The Frelimo party has been in power since the country gained independence from Portugal in 1975. Taking to social media, Mondlane, a 50-year-old former radio presenter, said that from the 13th of November to the 15th, protesters were going to paralyze all activities in the country. Now, reports suggest that Mondlane has asked his supporters to demonstrate in the capital of Maputo, the provincial capitals, and along the country's borders, and at the southern African country's ports. He has also urged truckers to stop bringing in goods from neighboring South Africa to the Maputo port. Now, the southern African nation has been rocked by violence ever since the Frelimo party's Daniel Chapo was announced the winner of the 9th of October elections with more than 71% of the votes. In contrast, Mondlane, who is the runner-up, won just 20% of the votes according to the election officials. The opposition, as well as several civil rights and Western observers, called the elections rigged, as well as not free and fair. Human rights groups say that at least 30 people have been killed in 3 weeks of demonstrations over the contested election results. The opposition leader, Venancio Mondlane's call for crippling protests comes just days after Mozambique saw its biggest protest against the ruling party, which has been in power for nearly 50 years. Last week, thousands of opposition supporters marched through the capital city of Maputo. Many protesters threw rocks and set up barricades using burning tires and bins, while many others could be heard shouting slogans such as "Frelimo must fall" and "Power to the people."
We want change, that's all, just change. Nobody wants a war here. We're not looking to dismantle anything from anyone. You're looking at opportunists.
But the protests in Maputo on the 7th of November saw security forces, including heavily armed riot police and soldiers, flanked by armored vehicles, firing tear gas and dispersing the crowds by deploying dogs.
They can't do that. Things don't work like that. We are marching peacefully. We are not armed. We are not vandalizing anything. But the police are ruining everything.
And now the Mozambique police have been accused by human rights groups of using live ammunition against political protesters in the past. Last week, the Defense Minister of Mozambique, Gustavo Chume, also threatened to send in the military to halt the deadly protests that he said were aimed at overthrowing the government.
We would like to emphasize that demonstrations are violent. The role of the defense forces is to prevent them. We are called upon to react, and we react according to the acts perpetrated by the demonstrators, so as to be able to contain them. If the escalation of violence continues, there will be no alternative but to change our stance. The armed forces will have to protect the interests of the state.
Now, the protests on the 7th of November reportedly saw at least 3 people being killed and over 66 others injured. Ahead of the protests, in an interview with the media outlet agency France Presse, or the AFP, Mondlane also noted that this was how the Frelimo party had been using brute force to silence dissenters for years.
They're not killings, they're murders. This has always been the way of Frelimo operates. I mean, first of all, Frelimo has never won an election since 1994. It's been 30 years that Frelimo has remained in power on the basis of force.
The country's Constitutional Council has requested clarification from the Electoral Commission on the discrepancies in the vote count. However, the Electoral Commission is yet to comment on the matter. While the ruling Frelimo has denied the vote-rigging allegations, the protests have continued to create chaos in the country, which has only increased the suffering of the citizens, who are calling for all the parties to sit down together and find a solution to the conflict.
I think the situation is terrible. For better or for worse, what is happening is harming the population. We are the ones who are suffering. I think the parties should sit down and talk for the good of the population, because it is the population that is suffering.
But it is not just the Mozambicans who are calling for a peaceful resolution. Nations, organizations, and people outside of Mozambique, including Pope Francis, have also called for a resolution to the deadly protests.
The news coming out of Mozambique is worrying. I invite everyone to dialogue, tolerance, and the tireless search for just solutions. Let us pray for the entire Mozambican population, so that the present situation does not cause them to lose faith in the path of democracy, justice, and peace.
Other Catholic groups have also gone ahead and further expressed their support to the protesters. Reports suggest that members of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference, or the SACBC, have expressed their solidarity with the colleagues in Mozambique. The SACBC members, which include Catholic bishops from Botswana, Eswatini, and South Africa, expressed their disapproval of the repressive response to the peaceful protesters. With more protests lined up in Mozambique, the larger question remains: will the government listen to the demands of the opposition? Now, to discuss more on this, we have with us Fredson Gulengu, who is a Mozambican political analyst who is joining us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, what are the main grievances raised by opposition's Venancio Mondlane, and This regarding the alleged rigging of the 9th of October elections, and how credible are these claims based on the available evidence?
Well, if I understood correctly, you want to understand about the credibility of the claims of Venancio Mondlane. Well, I think there is already a long, a 30 years history in Mozambique of accusations of election rigging and of electoral processes being controlled by hands outside the organs that are supposed to manage these processes. So there is a 30 years history of discredibility or lack of credibility in relation to the functioning of electoral bodies in Mozambique, including the courts, the police, and
Right.
the highest court institution, which is the Constitutional Council. So because of that,
Right.
it's very easy to for one to claim that there is election rigging. So apart from that, and people have seen through social media lots of acts of interference into the process. For example, people voting already or stuffing votes into the ballot box, pre-voted bulletins on behalf of the ruling party, mostly. And the people have also experienced situations where there's discrepancies in terms of the number of people registered for the three elections, because these were three simultaneous elections. It's the presidential, parliamentary, and also provincial. So there is a very big discrepancy in terms of the
Right.
number of people who voted. So there is, in
Yeah.
fact, some
Right.
credibility to the claims of Venancio Mondlane and his supporters, as I said, because there is history of interference with democratic processes in Mozambique, but there were also facts on the ground that prove that these elections cannot be considered as free, fair, and transparent, or if I might say, democratic.
Right. Right. And Fredson, how significant is the support for Mondlane's call for protests? I mean, we've seen huge support. And what potential impact could these demonstrations have on Mozambique's political stability? And what is the impact on daily life of the citizens?
Well, I will start from the end of your question, from the second question on the impact on the daily lives. I mean, it's clear, as you see, Mozambicans have not been able to live a normal life for the past months because it has been a month after these elections were held. And since the beginning of these protests, the economy has not been able to run as properly. Most shops have been closing one day and opening the other. I mean, the state institutions also have been operating normally, and I also believe that this is going to continue like that. I would also like to add that the border between Mozambique and South Africa was closed. And this is a very important border because Mozambique relies substantially in the import of goods that come from South Africa, even for the daily life of the Mozambicans, of Mozambican families. So socially, it has been complicated. People have lost their lives. You mentioned around, if I understood correctly, around 60 to so people who have lost their lives. There's a number of people who were injured, and the society is divided. There are two centers of power in Mozambique, today. One center, which is the de facto power that resides, in my understanding, in the hands of Mondlane, and the other center is the Juris power, which resides in the hands of Frelimo government. And Mondlane has been able to exercise power firmly. Yeah. But in terms of the political changes, I think this is a major development for Mozambique. No demonstration against electoral results have ever reached this dimension, this magnitude. Before, the center of contestations were on the countryside, in the countryside, but now they've moved to the urban areas.
Yes. Fredson, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Thank you for being with us on First Post Africa and for your valued insights there.
Thank you.
Let us now shift our focus towards Central Africa, where fighting between the Chadian army and the terror group Boko Haram has further escalated. In the latest, reports suggest that at least 15 to 17 Chadian army soldiers were killed in a weekend attack in the Lake Chad region. The Chadian army says that at least 32 soldiers were wounded in the attack. However, the army did not provide further details about the incident. Now, media reports suggest that the attack happened on the Carrier Island in the northwest of the Lake Chad region. Chad's army also claimed that 96 Boko Haram terrorists were also killed. Speaking on national television, the army spokesperson, General Isaac Achik, has also said that the army had wounded 11 terrorists and had seized several arms and equipment. Taking to social media, the president of Chad, Mohamed Idris Deby, saluted the bravery of the soldiers and extended condolences to their families, while assuring the public that the operation that he launched last month to dislodge the terrorists remains on track. Reports suggest that Facebook pages linked to the Zaghawa ethnic group, to which President Deby also belongs, on Sunday announced the death of around 10 officers from their community in the fighting. Now, the latest attack comes just days after Chad's military conducted an airstrike against Boko Haram terrorists, which the president said had wounded and killed many.
We launched our attack by air. We carried out several strikes on enemy positions. Many were killed and many wounded. I'm going to say that the Chadian army is going to win. I dare to believe that the army will win. I pray to Almighty God that our army will be able to defeat these barbarians who kill children and slit their throats. So these people deserve no pity, and God is always with the righteous. And I believe that God will support our army. God will be on the side of the righteous and the Chadian National Army.
The airstrikes were a major push in the counter-terrorism operations after President Deby warned that he would withdraw the Central African country from a multinational security force, which also includes neighboring Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon and Benin, and was tasked with tackling insurgent groups in the region. Earlier in the month, a statement that he said had the force called Multinational Joint Task Force, or the MNJTF, had failed in its task due to the lack of joint effort and unity against the common enemy.
Whenever there are problems in these neighboring countries, we deploy our soldiers. We deploy our children to go and support them. But when our country, Chad, is hit by the enemy, there is no support. Why do we always have to sacrifice our children for others and get no support in return? We had our children. They are dying there. And the enemy we are striking in neighboring countries is coming back to Lake Chad. So I have decided, in my soul and conscience, and as President of the Republic, I am first and foremost responsible for the security of Chad and the Chadian people.
Now, Chad's incremental fight against Boko Haram has intensified since late October, when an attack by Boko Haram terrorists killed at least 40 Chadian soldiers. The country had vowed to avenge the deaths of the soldiers who lost their lives in the Lake Chad region. To contextualize, the Central African country has for a long time suffered from insurgency in its western territories, especially the Lake Chad region. The region is notorious for both Boko Haram and its offshoot Islamic State West Africa province, who carry out regular attacks on the country's army and civilians. To tackle Boko Haram terrorists who have spread from Nigeria to other neighboring countries, Chad has also urged the international community to step up its counter-terrorism support. But with the casualties increasing day by day from Boko Haram attacks, how will Chad restore peace in the region? Our next story is about elephants living in Africa. Now, these colossal creatures that have made the savannas and African jungle their home are in serious trouble. Once known for roaming free in vast herds, these highly social animals are now struggling to hold their ground. A recent study by the conservation group Save the Elephants has uncovered just how badly their numbers have dwindled in the last 50 years, revealing a shocking decline that's as dramatic as it is heartbreaking.
Redis has tried to look at how close species are to extinction. They're obviously extinct as when they have gone. The most threatened category is what we call critically endangered. That's where they have extremely high risk of extinction unless we do something about it. The next category down is endangered. That means this has a very high risk of extinction unless we take action.
The study, which spans 475 sites across 37 African countries from 1964 to 2016, offers a sobering snapshot of elephant populations on the decline. Now, savanna elephants have seen their numbers fall by an average of a whopping 70%, while their smaller cousins, the forest elephants, have been hit even harder, losing an astounding 90% of their populations. Overall, the combined decline is a staggering 77%, and some places have lost their elephants entirely. But what is driving this collapse? Poaching, plain and simple. Poachers target elephants for their precious tusks. This fuels the illegal ivory trade, a business still thriving despite international bans.
Governments have taken the brave step of burning their stockpiles to make absolute.
The demand, mainly from China and parts of Asia, is pushing these gentle giants to the brink. But poaching isn't the only threat. They are also losing their homes due to agricultural expansion. Now, it's a double whammy. Killed for their tusks and squeezed out of their territories, experts say that the human-animal conflict is driving elephants into confined territories, where it has become easier for poachers to kill the elephant.
You can't confine them to the reserves. Trying to fence the reserves would be exorbitantly expensive, but also just not good for the conservation of the species. You need them to be moving between the different areas so that they're mixing, so you need to have them moving. So really, in the long term, the plan there is looking at coexistence and how to create awareness in local communities about the value of the elephants and how to plan around them so that there isn't this retaliatory killing.
The forest elephant, already the underdog with only about a third of the savanna elephant's population, is bearing the brunt of the damage, particularly in northern and eastern Africa. In regions like Mali, Chad and Nigeria, elephant populations have been wiped out, leaving vast swathes of land that once echoed with trumpeting calls eerily silent. The Sahel, an area known for its dry, harsh landscapes, has become a graveyard for elephants, with poaching running rampant and little to no protection in place. But not all is lost. Countries like Botswana, Zimbabwe and Namibia have seen a rise in elephant numbers thanks to robust conservation programs and effective management. Conservationists estimate that at present there were between 415,000 and 500,000 African elephants left on the continent. That may sound like a lot, but considering the drastic declines, it's clear that these majestic creatures are teetering on the edge. Conservationists say that the loss of these large mammals isn't just an African issue, it's a global one. Elephants are integral to the ecosystems they inhabit, shaping forests and grasslands, dispersing seeds and supporting countless other species. Losing elephants would throw nature's delicate balance into chaos. It's time to take a stand, because if we don't, we might find ourselves asking, how did we not crack down on human activity that is forcing the world's largest land animal toward oblivion? And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid the coups and the crises, there are many positive stories from Africa that often get overlooked, but not on this show. Our story today is a special report from South Africa. The coastal city of Durban was a sight full of enthusiasm and thrill over the weekend. A small township near the city hosted this year's Velo Solutions Pump Track World Championships. The world's best cyclists descended upon the city for an action-packed event. Apart from showcasing some exceptional talent, the event promoted cycling in underprivileged communities. And I got the opportunity to cover the event and talk to the organizers who spoke to me about the pump track racing and also shared their vision about what they want to achieve with this sport. The next report brings you all the details from the ground.
KwaMashu, a vibrant township near the Durban city in South Africa, was abuzz with excitement and enthusiasm this weekend. It hosted this year's Pump Track World Championships, bringing together top riders from across the globe.
This white frame here that you can see is the starting box. This is where the riders have to line up to get going into this first break here.
The international event brought together the best cyclists from over 20 countries. 60 international riders and 4 local cyclists took part in the mega event. They all reached the final stage after competing in the qualifiers, which were held in some of the most breathtaking places worldwide.
And there is the big hope for the mountain bikers.
But for the climax, the ultimate battleground became KwaMashu, a vibrant township renowned for its rich cultural heritage and spirited community.
The big difference is that we are the first official pump track, official world championships held in the township. And I think that makes it special. And with our foundation, Pump for Peace, we try to make a lot of things happen. We have the township series the week before. We invite riders from Lesotho. We have a qualifier there. So we invite them to come here and participate at the official world championships.
As the town hosted the finals, the atmosphere in the city turned electric, with riders showcasing thrilling performances and tricks on the pump track. Pump track racing is a little different than regular cycling. For starters, it doesn't require a rider to pedal the bike. These tracks are kind of like small roller coaster rides, giving bikers the momentum with just a little push. Then the cyclists balance and perform tricks to score points on these purpose-built tracks. The tracks have circuits of rollers, banked turns and features designed to be ridden completely by riders, pumping quite literally.
It's high-speed sport, you know, the turns, they have to go through turns, they have to pump, they need power, they need also technique to ride the bike properly in the turns. So there are a lot of different small skills that are coming together, and the best riders, they have all these skills, and that makes it very interesting to watch as well.
You don't have to be an advanced rider to get pumped into the riding action. It's a fun and safe sport that could be practiced by young and adults both. And it's not just restricted to bikes. In fact, any equipment with wheels could go galloping on these tracks.
It's not just high-end sport. It is a playground for everyone. It's not just cycling. It's skateboarding, scooters. Sometimes we even have wheelchairs on them.
Wow.
So basically anything that has wheels.
Okay, go on there.
To promote the activity around the world, pump tracks making firm Velo Solutions have been organizing such events since 2018. In this year's fiercely competitive events in Kwamashu, Ryan Gilchrist from Australia became victorious in the men's category, while Sabina Kosarkova from the Czech Republic won the women's category. Unlike other cycling events, this racing is not a head-to-head contest, but an individual sport where the participants showcase their exceptional speed, skill, tricks and balance to claim the winning spot in their respective categories.
So the race was amazing. I enjoyed every moment of it and I was feeling really comfortable, won every lap, so yeah.
Absolutely perfect. From start to finish, I executed my plan perfectly. I was building, going faster and faster and faster until the final, and in the final I did the best lap, so couldn't have been much better, and I'm super proud to be representing Australia.
I race BMX back home in the States, but it's very different than pump track. This is kind of a for fun and just like a different discipline to try out. So I qualified in the States and decided, hey, like South Africa would be super cool to go to.
While the successful event showcased the exceptional bike riding talent from across the world, the organizers say the championships also helped in local community building. The event highlighted the impactful work of Pump for Peace, a global initiative by Velo Solutions that aims to promote cycling in underprivileged communities. The success is also shared by the Go Durban Cycle Academy that plays a crucial role in this effort by nurturing young cycling talent and promoting active lifestyles among children and young adults in Durban's townships.
Most important thing, we want to bring people to the sport. I think that's why we build these pump tracks. We want to give kids the chance to ride on a bicycle, on a skateboard, on a scooter, whatever, on the pump track. We want to bring people together.
Such an event could also be a great booster to South Africa's sporting culture that has been dominated by popular mainstream sports like football, cricket and rugby. And the efforts by Pump for Peace and Go Durban Cycle Academy could pedal the way for less popular but more healthy sports to thrive in the country.
This is going to be some celebration tonight here.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching and goodbye.